Hi, David. I'll be right back.
Oh.
Something off the computer. Okay.
We have a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 p.m.
Hello.
Hello. I just got a flash on my, we have a severe thunderstorm watch until 10. I walked here, so I hope it's
You're
not.
2 blocks away.
Yeah, but I'm not walking in a downpour.
Well, I'll give you a ride home.
Thank you. That's what I was fishing for. How's it going?
Okay. Yeah, did I tell you about my cat dilemma?
No.
Oh, so we had a stray cat in September and I coordinated with CATS, the cat action team, to get a cage.
Yeah.
And then I ended up not trapping it. Hello. Because my neighbor has a similar looking cat.
Oh,
And I said, oh, this is Deborah's from down the road and it's a boy. It's not, we don't have to worry about kittens.
right.
Anyway, it
Sorry?
turns out it was a female. It wasn't Deborah's cat. It was a stray and now
My
we have
family.
kittens.
Oh, God.
And I'm
Have
like,
some grandkids.
it's my fault because I literally had the cage
Right.
and I just said, oh, I'm not gonna trap that cat. That's the neighbor's cat from down the road.
Right.
So
That makes sense why.
now I'm having to deal with kittens.
Do you have the kittens inside your house?
Well, that's what I was I wanted to do after work, but then I got, work is crazy, so I got out of work late and then I got home and then life and
Yeah.
then went to check up, the situation, but we just need
Well,
those cages ultimately is what we need to do, but we got 2 cages.
Since
Where
she's
is
not
he?
impersonating me, I don't want
Next
to, I don't want to
door
try to
at my
impersonate you.
neighbor's house in her yard.
Uh,
I don't even
is she
pay
like
attention to
under
that,
a bush or something?
but the kittens are all like walking around, so they're so adorable. Everyone loves
You're the
kittens.
boss, you can do whatever you want, wherever you want, so I just was, you can be wherever.
Did they have me here? Is that what
Well,
happened?
no, I think you should be right there, it was.
Go ahead and get started. We don't have a busy agenda, but I think everyone has a busy tomorrow, so let's go ahead and try to jump in and.
Wrap this up before 9?
Yeah, and it's such a like, wow, do you remember the days when we had an agenda like this?
Yeah.
Super manageable
Right.
and feeling like maybe we're
Yeah.
gonna walk out feeling accomplished. All right, so hello.
Hi.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:05 PM. Roll.
Angevine. Krista,
Here.
Altabama,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Strassman,
Here.
we have a forum.
Thank you. Okay, do we agree to the agenda? The only thing that I'm noticing is the June 5th meeting minutes we don't have. So we'll go ahead and table number 4, strike that from the agenda.
We just started, that's all.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as is. With the striking of number 4.
Okay,
I will
Scott,
second.
We're,
second, all right, all in favor?
hold
Aye.
on for 1
Aye.
second, I just want to say to you. He's gonna, we're just okaying the minutes, any issues with the minutes?
Oh, no.
Okay,
Agenda.
agenda,
So we just have one adjustment, which is number 4. We don't have the minutes, so we'll table that till next meeting. All right, so we have nomination, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good, thank you. Number 2, Javier? $4.
Nope.
Yeah, so I think
Sure.
somebody could bring up this, we're gonna treat this as our annual meeting. So as part of procedure, I think the body should move forward with have the opportunity, I'll put it, move forward with nominating and electing a chairman and then also a vice chairman. Or, you know, president of the commission, I guess, in this sense, rather than council.
Okay,
can I ask a question? If that's okay, so we have. You are the chair and we have the vice chair. Y'all like what you're doing? Do you want to keep doing what you're doing? Are you okay with that? Does anybody else want to do anything? I don't know. I haven't talked to everybody,
Right.
so I don't know if anybody has any inclinations or interests or who wants to do what.
I'll say for the time being, I'm comfortable in my particular position.
You look pretty comfortable in that position, so.
Yeah, I'm fine.
yeah, I'm fine, I think perhaps next year might be nice to take a less active role, so maybe someone could think about stepping up for next year. But otherwise, I'm
I can
fine.
Prepare myself for something more, but for right now.
Well, I can
It's fine.
task you with more. We can talk through that if you, there's always stuff to do. Okay, all right, so that's my piece. Did anyone else want to step up?
Well, do you have any interest in anything
I have no interest in it, anything at all.
in terms of any of these positions? Okay, no,
I
I
really
just,
don't,
okay.
but thank you very much for, even suggesting that. That's really nice.
and how about over there? Do you like what you're doing? Do you
I
want to
do.
stay there?
I'm good.
Okay, I just thought it'd be good if we felt where everybody was. That sounds great. So then it feels good then to nominate people if they want to be where they are.
Yes.
And some people are really comfortable where they are too. You look comfortable. There was, I'll make this comment too. There's been a long debate and discussion in the town council about what role the liaison should have. So just so you know, love what you all are doing, but I think given this ongoing debate about what role it is, I will happily support whatever we do. In other words, I won't make the nomination, but I'll happily support the nominations. Because we're still, although I think it should be the person in my role should have there's not full agreement on that. There's difference of opinion in the town council. Some think that a liaison should not have a voting role or should have a less. So at the moment,
I'm glad that you brought that up because I was kind of wondering then. If the liaison doesn't have a voting role and the chair doesn't have a voting role except to break the tie. Why do we only have 3 representatives voting on issues from the town?
It's a good point. I wonder the same. I don't know that 3 really gives you enough representation.
Right.
just so I say this, and I've said in the town council, it's very, like, throughout legislative bodies around the world. The person who is the liaison, they do vote. It's common everywhere around the world. So,
Yeah,
and I think it's again, fairness to the people. So I disagree with but there are some town councilors, you were gonna say something?
No, I was just thinking, I was getting ready to think out loud about the fact that the liaison is voting twice on issues. I think that's kind of peculiar, but you know, I don't think we should stick with what everybody else is doing. Really, I think we're looking to clarify whether that's a good idea or not. I think that now that the role is a little bit more stated as being important and you know, necessary to be fully enacted in each of the meetings, I think that's definitely a step in the right direction, but I'm surprised to hear that they would, I mean, why wouldn't you be chair if you were the liaison? You know?
Well, to answer that question, when I say legislative practice, like, I mean, it would be extremely out of the ordinary. I mean, I'm talking about legislative processes around the world in the United States history, like, it's totally common for whoever, whatever committee it is, to be the liaison as a voting person. Being the chair is a different thing. The chair, and so being the chair would be a role that, again, I would say I would think the person that I currently occupy this, there should be no reason they couldn't be the chair, but I don't think they would, it would be like in this, it would be in this meeting, if it were agreed upon, it were voted upon, there's no reason they couldn't be that person.
Right, I mean, and that's the role Sherry was playing.
Right.
And
She was the chair and she was
But
the
she
chair
was
and
the
the
chair.
liaison.
Well,
And that's why
She didn't vote as the chair.
Matthew
yes.
Peckles. I mean, Joshua.
Well, she would have voted as
Yeah.
the chair on a tie. But
She would have.
She would also.
Right, but it felt like we had more voting members
Yeah.
when she was serving both roles.
Yeah.
Sure,
Because, you know,
And that's why I say that.
Right.
It's kind of more of an important role than just reporting to each entity. It is voting on twice on an issue, and it gives kind of a loftier position. I just wanted to think that out loud. And I'll be interested to see how that all comes out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll follow that and come and see what happens.
it's been something we've been dialoguing with for a number of
Yeah.
months, so to speak.
So you don't have like an agenda item for it or anything, or past business?
There's been, yes, it has been a topic, but it's not been resolved. It's been, Bill has brought something it's kind of an ongoing thing. He brought something and then it was adjusted, and it's kind of been back and forth, so it's not a resolved thing. I think the debate about it has, we'll simply say, not been finalized.
Well, and
Everything is so wishy-washy whenever we talk about important issues. I find that it just kind of flounders around and then disappears.
Yeah, he's been the one driving that conversation. You might check with him to see what he.
Well, I'm just wondering about what happens with issues that are brought up that are important, kind of. You know,
Sometimes that, well, again, going back to the town council, there'll be some issues are tabled and, you know, they're not addressed. This one has kind of, it's been a part of a much bigger thing about committees and assignments and stuff, and some of the proposals that he brought were not fully fleshed out, so it's kind of, he's had to do more work, the town staff had to do more work on it. I only mentioned it in the sense of, in good faith at the moment, I would feel more comfortable supporting a nomination versus making a nomination. That's all I'm trying to say.
all right.
well, and I mean. To Shannon's point, to Commissioner Strassner's point, if the liaison doesn't have a vote, then I mean, I would almost rather see the liaison being the chair, because it cripples the body when you only have 3 voting
Right.
members, and what happens if
Yeah.
one of those voting members are out?
Right.
And it's hard to break a tie as the chair if you have 3 members of the body, so
Right.
the chair is kind of pointless in that situation unless
Right.
somebody's out.
or we add another member to the
But-
commission.
Yeah, and there's nothing that says that it has to be 5. It's just the way it's been. I don't know for how long, and I imagine over time that's changed. I don't have the history on that. But if anyone should have 2 votes, if indeed that's how we're looking at it, it makes sense that the person that was voted by the townspeople would be,
Right,
the town council person might have some more authority to have that. If that's the way that we look at it.
Normally, if you're in a legislative body, like you're a so there'll be a subcommittee chairman or a subcommittee, so congressmen, or they're all in subcommittees,
Yeah.
they vote, I mean, everybody in the town council has the ability to serve in a committee. There's only a couple committees that are prescribed by law. This is one of those.
Right.
And they're all equally, I mean, they're all important in different ways.
I'm in favor of leaving it the way that it is.
Yeah.
And the chair, not being the liaison, but the liaison having a voting role.
Yeah, and we could leave it the way that it is, but I might very well step down from the chair position if he, as the liaison, no longer has a vote, because it just seems to me that wouldn't really make sense, but.
Sure.
Well,
again, to be totally careful about how I say this, I think it's more of a residual issue of people, for example, who objected to my specific views. It's not about, I don't think it's a substance issue. I might be wrong, but I think it's kind of a residual sense of some of the things before people trying to monkey around. And I hope we're past that. I hope we get past, because again, one of the things that you try to do from a legislative perspective is you try to do what's best in the interest of the body. It doesn't matter, what's best for the town in the long run. It doesn't matter like a particular person.
I just have a quick question. Why is it that you were gonna step down as chair?
because then we would have, out of a body of 5 people, we'd have 2 that don't have voting power, and that just seems strange to me.
Sure.
Because 2 issues, one, I mean, the fact that 2/5 of the body can't vote, but also there's no tie to break, so the chair becomes even less meaningful or powerful or necessary, aside from all the many other functions that I serve. In fact, I don't think I've ever had to vote on a tie here. It just seems like it's kind of diminishing the power of the body overall. We don't
Right.
have 3 members that are voting members.
I think you're right, that it brought up questions during I'm sure it was during the faculty vote. And, there were weird kind of circumstances surrounding that. So there were questions as to why someone would have 2 votes on something like that. And aren't all the issues that important? But, if, you're gonna step down and all of that,
Well, she was saying hypothetically, if the town
Yeah.
didn't do it, that it would be. Again, in good faith, let's hope it doesn't go that direction. But this is just an ongoing residual. I think your point is a good one, but there are a lot of things that don't. And I'm sorry to make it a longer conversation, but there's been a lot of town council conversation about planning commission recently, and
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'd rather not answer that question.
Oh, see, so you think it's a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing when we have conversations about the process. It's not a bad thing, but it becomes a bad thing when it's politicized. If Dan had voted against the factory in both situations, he's arguing perhaps this wouldn't be a topic of conversation, and the people that were against the tire factory would be cheering silently that they had someone voting twice. So it just depends on what side of the vote you're on, whether you like that position or not. So having the conversation and settling it once and for all is totally fine with me, and it's frustrating sometimes to go over policies where, they've been the way they've been for years and probably decades, but
That's exactly
there's
where
nothing
we don't
wrong
wanna
with.
go, but with this we can. I'm just saying that, we don't always wanna look and say that's the way it's been happening for you.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Just because something's been happening that way doesn't mean it's the right way. So there's nothing wrong with having a policy conversation.
Okay.
Um, so that being said, I'm happy to entertain nominations, or do we have a nomination to present?
I nominate Lisa Catalbiano for chair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure.
Right, very good. Thank
Do we
you.
need a specific vote, or is it just voice votes? Okay.
You got
It's voices, okay, okay. Good.
Okay. Vice chair, please.
I'd like to nominate Shannon Strassner for vice chair of the planning commission.
Second.
Oh, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. That was, okay, thank you.
Thanks to both of you for continued serving, and thanks to the other two of you for continued serving.
You too.
Thank you. All
And,
right,
and actually, I really do mean that. I mean, it is a thing. I mean, to appreciate in town that people are take their time to serve. It's a good thing.
absolutely. Number 5, report on relevant actions by town council. So we just got a little bit. What else is going on in town council?
I guess, Becky, I want to ask you the question. What aspects, because I don't know what to say we can or can't say.
About
I can
them.
say that the council did not take action on your appointment or reappointment because they had not accepted your resignation, therefore you were still a member of the planning commission, and that came from our legal attorney.
But
Okay.
does somebody have to be reappointed at the end of each term? Oh, no, her term is still in effect. Okay,
And
gotcha.
Molly was reappointed.
The reason,
She told me.
the,
Congratulations.
We'll get into that.
no, the reason I was asking is because there were aspects, it actually unrelated to what we just talked about, and this is, Molly, I apologize because it was a little bit masked. Unrelated to what we were talking about, there was an enormous amount of conversation within the town council. It was mostly related to Shannon's situation, and it was,
Sorry.
no, it was, and again, that's, I was really asking what we could say or couldn't say, because it's.
That was discussed in public, so we can.
Yeah, so there were, and the thing that I will say about it, that I said both in supporting your staying on and also you being on, is people who want to serve, we should support that regardless of their views. I actually said that, you know, you and I have differed, and I supported I actually said, people who want to serve, one of the difficulties we have as a town, most of the time we have difficulty filling positions. And so coming back to you wanting to stay
So I
on,
was a warm body, and that was a good thing.
you were a warm body who was willing with experience. And that's not a minor thing. I mean, it's actually a really good thing.
No, that's true.
And the other one, going back to Shannon, to affirm this was a bit tricky because it had to be understood and involved our town attorney to address multiple questions and concerns that people had. And long and short of it, super glad you're here. So there was a lot of discussion amongst the town council about those two things, mostly Shannon.
And I think there was some misunderstanding because the town administrator had proceeded to advertise. So what the attorney,
Position.
yeah, but what the attorney said was the council appoints and the council accepts resignations or do not reappoint. And so they did not take any action, which means you should.
Well, it made me wonder whether, since there was another volunteer who was offering to be on the commission, if it was a situation where, since mine was up, that it would be a vote between the two.
They didn't consider that.
Volunteers.
They only considered reappointment.
Okay.
There was
Oh,
no-
I don't care one way or the other. I was just saying there were things that came up along those lines, because it was a big question mark, why both positions were being advertised. And so it got me a little confused,
I
but
didn't know they advertised your position.
yeah, and people were calling me asking me why, and I said. I don't know how these people think, but
Well, it's because you're running for mayor.
Well, historically, we, as a town council, we generally, if somebody wants to. Continue, the practice is we generally have that person continue. That's the practice I've seen over the years.
well, it was interesting not to be devoid of volunteers, so.
Yes,
we
it
can
was
look at
nice.
that positively as
Yes, it
well.
was, that's right, it's nice, and the citizen who applied got a letter from the town thanking them for their interest.
Yeah, thanks for sending that to us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to thank you for
Basically
that.
saying stay tuned. The other thing that I will say is I was glad Eileen could be here last month. I was back leading a DC tour a month ago. First thing I hadn't done one in a number of years and very busy post-COVID again, and I thought it was helpful having her here also kind of explaining the project she's working on, getting volunteers, and I hope that helped clear up a few things too. I know there was some feelings about the role of the planning commission in that endeavor, and I will say, I'm glad the planning commission is being considered. We did a similar project about 5 years ago. We didn't really, when we did not involve the planning commission, so I've been encouraged by that.
Well, and you have 5 volunteers, you know,
Yes.
or 4 additional volunteers that, you know, could be part of that, so why wouldn't you?
Correct. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I thought it was good for her to be here to do that, and that would be mainly what I have. Is there anything else that I've missed from that you think was notable? I know that we're going to hear more tonight about the comprehensive plan. And we're now in the new budget year.
Yeah, so we ended the fiscal budget year last Saturday. I think that's the largest one relative to the planning commission, so we're starting with the new fiscal year. We'll get to the end of the month.
All right, very good, thank you. Matters from the public, is anyone online?
We check. Share. Just us.
Okay, thank you. Old business, continued comprehensive plan work session.
Okay, well, happy 4th of July, commissioners. Hopefully we'll get done with this meeting before the 4th of July.
That'd be great.
Apologies, my slides were not sent in advance. You know, I had a lot of thoughts in my mind about some questions about the process and some decisions that might need to be made before we make other decisions on the comp plan. For instance, the strategic planning process and how that is progressing. So I tried to explain that in a sequence of slides. Javier is logging into the Adobe PDF program, but we're going to look at the slide for now on the browser here. These are the proposed discussion points on this agenda item. So first, if we talked about this document review, the suggested reading list that I emailed. Then public engagement plan, progressing on some of those materials. I even printed off 2 items that can kind of progress us towards having an actual event. Comp plan revisions, some of the things that we keep chipping away at building this document or revising the document. And then a sequence of work in the next steps. Then the next agenda item is Scottsville zoning updates. This is kind of digging out an old document that Matt had sent in 2021. And then the update on the VDOT roundtable. Okay, so we can go to slide number 3. So the chair and Mr. Strathner and I had a discussion last Monday, and I thought it was really fruitful. And one request and suggestion was made was to propose some decision items every meeting to keep us rolling. So I've made this in more of a fire engine red. And these are just 3 items for today. I would suggest talking about, you know, the comp plan's goals and strategies. Should this wait to be discussed before the strategic planning process is concluded? This is one question I have, and I'd like to guide you through the slides, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Number two, when should community engagement events begin? Should we discuss and brief the town council on our ideas, our plans, our process? Even the survey questions, to get everyone on the same page before we meet the public. That's one question. And then number three is, when will the joint planning commission town council work session be held? That's really getting everyone on the same page. I know this is a lot about sequencing and there's a lot of moving parts, but hopefully we can come together and talk about this further today. So moving on to the next slide, the weekly reading list, I emailed this, and I just walk you through the documents. First was the Albemarle County's comp plan in 2015. Okay, so I suggested a few questions in the email. How is Scottsville recognized within Albemarle County's comp plan? Does Scottsville appear to be recognized as much as it was in 2015? So I've done some statistics on that, and I can confidently say it's not looking good. So new things that have arisen over the last couple of days, and this is one of the reasons I didn't send the slide because I was still milling over these questions. What are the implications of Scottsville's different designations in Albemarle County versus Fluvanna? So I was looking at Fluvanna, it's very interesting what I had found out. And then the last item there, should a county comp plan show town assets when they don't really, put the town on the map? And why would that maybe happen? Moving on to the next slide, if we can. So this is the 2015 comp plan for the county. You can see on the right-hand side, the table of contents, it's right-hand justified by chance in the document. But they really got three different documents. They've got the plan, the appendix, and then the reference documents. And then at the very bottom section are linked items. But even the Scottsville comp plan at the time, the 15 comp plan at that time, was already in there as a document. So they were considering that. We go on, this comp plan lists 10 different goals, and they really follow this hierarchy of from the visions, the goals, the objectives, and strategies. So that you can see on these slides, number 7, growth management, natural resources, historic culture, and scenic resources. And then following slides, 3 more. Economic development of rural areas, development areas, and housing priorities. Transportation, parks and recreation, so on and so forth, and community facilities. Okay, so those are the 10 goals. The document also includes a whole page on Scottsville. You can see here on the right-hand side. The small text, which is perhaps a little bit hard to read, but it basically says that the county is obliged to provide Scottsville residents and property owners with the same level of service provided to other county residents. You can see here on the left-hand side, these are all the key areas in the comp plan where Scottsville is mentioned. And I myself was positively impressed by how much Scottsville was mentioned in this older document.
Are you saying that they're not mentioned as much in the newer document?
Basically, that's my bottom line.
Okay,
I did an analysis of all the materials that are on the Albemarle County website. There's over 1,000 pages
oh,
of materials
imagine,
going into the new comp plan.
right.
And I've got some numbers to show a little bit later.
And so, I'm sorry, one more quick question. You say that they can, in the old document, they had considered Scottsville to receive the same considerations and services as their other towns within the county
The other residents.
or residents?
We are the only town technically.
Oh, I got you.
But you can
So-
see here in the blue, yeah, that's basically that text that I just read.
Okay, am I jumping the gun? I'm sorry. I
Oh.
just am curious if there are services we're not getting that other residents get within the county,
Well, I give you one example. It's more about distribution of resources geographically throughout the county. So I was really impressed with this Last item here on the page, strategy 8C, library at Scottsville should continue.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to say that it should remain, the resources should be dedicated there. And other aspects, as you know, assets, Doria Park, for instance, is run by the county, but it's on town land. Yeah, so this is a local asset. So I'll mention a few of these later in the presentation, but I sense the trend is all the focus on the county is going towards the growth belt around Charlottesville.
Sure.
So that has implications for Scottsville, of course, yeah. And how Scottsville chooses to design its new comp plan also plays into that. And I'll kind of reveal some strategies that Scottsville could use to you know, perhaps change its situation or maintain its situation. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
Sure. So for instance, one objective, this is objective 10 in that comp plan. It basically says that the county should collaborate with Scottsville. I think it's very positive. And it writes about how this collaboration has happened. I actually met with Nancy Gill earlier today, and she was involved in that collaboration. They actually had a yearly meeting between the county and the town.
Yeah.
To talk about areas of collaboration, differences, you know, what can be done, so on and so forth.
And we haven't done that since.
Does not appear that has been happening lately.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I started looking through the document more. I did a word search for Scottsville, and you know, this is over 2,000 pages. But basically, I happened upon this in the appendix, and this is done by the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. And you can see here Albemarle County on the left. Scottsville is mentioned here. It's in orange. City of Charlottesville and Town of Scottsville right there. Now I look at the next few pages has Fluvanna. You know, Scottsville is not mentioned, it's a different color. So that got me thinking, you know, what about the Fluvanna comp plan? I didn't put that on the reading list, but I started looking at it over the weekend. So here's the Fluvanna comp plan. You can see in the corner, there's a purple area. It's basically a community planning area. So it says that Scottsville is the county's newest community planning area. This is in 2015. And it says that this area can have commercial and office structures and other things. But if you compare with the current town zoning, it's only village residential. And you know, there's a laundromat there. So there might be a little bit of discrepancy there. So I started zooming into Fluvanna comp plan on their GIS. And yes, they do have the town boundary here. You know, it's a little bit offset from the county boundary and so on, but it's very diagrammatic. But you can see this is their whole development area. And the zoning is quite different than the town zoning. I just selected that lot. This is business zoning. When we have village residential.
Right. And so they report that to their constituents that it is all business there or commercial.
Well, this is basically, the reason that they're designating this is for a development area.
Okay.
So in Fluvanna, the development areas might not be as critical, but a development area is basically an area that a jurisdiction designates. And that has potentially special incentives. So for instance, all the areas around Charlottesville are development areas in the county, so they get a lot more resources. So they basically count population throughout the county and they move a lot of resources towards the development areas. So if an area is not if the place is not a development area, it doesn't get as many resources.
Right.
Lincoln, can I ask you, this might take hopefully I can explain this. Correct me if I'm, or tell me what you think of this concept. One of the things that I'm wondering as we work on the comp plan is the fact of some things I've observed as a town councilor, that when we pursued county resources, for me, for example, when I was active some years ago in the park and worked closely with Dan Mahan, who used to be the county trail guy. Invariably, I'd meet with him and he would say something like, you know, it's good that you're talking to me because I need to focus more on Southern Albemarle. That was a common refrain that he would have. And I know when Zach was on the town council, one of his projects he was always interested in was trying to improve the town's viewscape over the train area. And so that was an area we really didn't focus on, but Zach pursued it. We went after state agencies, federal agencies. So I guess my question is, beyond the document that we create, is it correct to assume the way that we drive the service from the county is somewhat of what we pursue? So in other words, when we take the strategic plan, Scottsville wants to do X, and then we become activists with the county to go after X. The county's not necessarily sitting there waiting to do X until we go after it. Is that correct to assume that?
Yes, and I would say a comp plan is really a justification for doing something. So let's say that the county realizes they need to do something in the south here. But they don't have really any impetus or justification to do it. So if you approach them with, hey, there's a reason to do this, then they might have a better chance of going along with your idea.
So to follow up on something my fellow planning commissioner said here, or you said before, is there's multiple steps to take the idea and actually have the action taken or the project done or whatever. And I think it'll be interesting to figure this out. Have you had much contact with Councilor Morse on the strategic planning aspect of this?
Yes, I attended her session, I guess it was towards the end of May, that was at the library, the first of 2 sessions.
And the reason I thought, so my suggestion would be maybe to involve her again soon, because she's kind of driving it in the town council also. So as with your project this summer, we don't have a lot of time, so to speak. So I would suggest maybe quickly communicate with her. I'll let her know too, also to get with you. But I think what I'm saying is that we, as the planning commission, as we create this document, we also have the ability to come to the town and say, we think these are the 3 things or 8 things or whatever in the midst of the larger comp plan we really want to go after, because it takes that other step to actually then encourage the county to leverage the resources our direction, because they're not going to do it otherwise. So we have to actually be activists about that. So I think it's both. As we create this document, the thing that we're going to want to do is figure out how do we get the most buy-in as a town, then what are we going to go after? Because again, otherwise we just have a document that's there, and that process of doing together the strategic plan worked with the overall comp plan. And I think it's important because I guess all I'm saying is there's a very influential role we can have as we both listen to citizens and then figure out whatever it is, because it takes a lot. I will say as a town councilor, most of the things we actually really accomplished took years to do and an enormous amount of effort and begging the county to help us a lot over time. So anyways, I thought that you were going to say that, but it was helpful. So that's another thing you could do for us in this project is if you see something that jumps out the page at you, when you look at the big picture and you understand where the county is, like you just did, you said, wait a minute, Scottsville seems not to be on the focus as much at the moment. If that's true, then what do we got to do about that? So as you see things like that, your trained eyes are going to see things that we don't see. So please give us that advice. So thank you for that.
But I agree with your points, Mr. Crisco, and one aspect that I'll mention a little bit later is the importance of capital investment plan. So this is long-term, 20 years. And it might say something like, in 15 years, the town should consider doing this and plan to have the asset to do this. In 10 years, it should plan to do this. In 5 years, it should plan to do this. Javier and I were talking about this earlier, about a capital investment plan, and the Government Services Committee have a plan, but it's more for like photocopier, air conditioner, for a budgetary allotment for next year. But what a county or other grantee organization would want to see is something long-term. They don't want to look at copier for next year. They want to look at, sidewalk improvements 50 years in the future. And these might not be actual targets, but they might be aspirations in 15 years.
Well, it's interesting that you use that example, because I think that's a really great example. I know we'd had some action items in meetings with CSX, and there were action items with that. Nothing, from what I understand, nothing ever came of it. They just said, sure, we'll do that. And then nothing was done. So, you know, trying to go after resources within the county that might have a little bit more weight with people like CSX, because I do think that that corridor there is a very important viewscape. It's, you know, the roadway coming down 6 and into town is a really important place to have a feel for the town, and I don't think you get that too much there. So I think it's an important thing. Whether it become our top 3 priority, I don't know, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that that fell short and that effort was wasted, and I think we can move forward with that. So I hope it's a bulleted item.
And just one thing to follow, just to say with you, we actually they gave us grants, so we got money, like the town got money from CSX, and multiple times we actually talked to people, unfortunately, because every issue needs an advocate, so to speak. Zach was the advocate of that issue, and with
Well,
his,
that was a while back. I feel like, so you say the grants, did they go towards cleaning up?
yeah,
that
they
area?
got like 5, how much was it, how many thousand was it, Javier?
Well,
5,000.
2,000.
Yeah, there was various, so the point was, it's a long-standing issue, it needs a lot more issues, and Zach, it was you'll find on the.
I'm not faulting.
Well,
No, I'm more just saying,
but
Yeah.
we do want to try to
Sure.
bring it back.
yeah, I'm more just saying that, more coming back to saying, we can only impact what we target, so to speak, and
Mhm.
that happened to be his passion, I use that as an example, and it's gonna be, what do we decide? As a planning commission, can we go after and work with the town council on the
Yeah.
strategic plan, and then try to leverage county resources for that, or state, or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, so based on this analysis, I suggest that the town staff reach out to the planning director of Fluvanna and just have a conversation. Understanding where they're at, they're actually revising their comp plan right now. They're maybe gonna be finishing in 3 to 4 months, based on the minutes what I saw on their website. Just to kind of better understand this situation, but one thing I do know is they can't really designate an urban development area as they have. This community planning area is also an urban development area, as they write here. They can't designate that without the town designating it as an urban development area.
Right, that's what makes me think they came up with this in conjunction with somebody, but then there was no follow through.
So I searched through our previous 2 comp plans, I can't find anything about urban development areas. So it does not seem like Scottsville has used that terminology previously. Yeah. So basically there's a potential conflict, maybe unintended, but it would be good to first talk it through, understand what they're thinking, so on and so forth. Because I don't think it's as critical for town business with Fluvanna, but if you look at the same lens for Albemarle County, there's a lot more resources to be had or lost, so on and so forth. So this is just the Code of Virginia having to do with comp plans. I'll keep talking about this later today, but yes, basically in the green, localities shall consult with adjacent localities. And then the second green, if the council of the town has also amended its comprehensive plan to designate the same area as urban development areas. So basically, both parties, the county has to follow the town, basically. Okay, and then the last bullet point, development areas can be methods of channeling resources. That's the bottom line.
So I have a question about the Fluvanna designation here in Scottsville as a development area. Is there evidence that they've started channeling money towards that part of their county because of that designation?
I'm not very familiar with what's out here outside of town boundary,
Mhm.
there doesn't seem to be very much,
No.
happening.
Yeah, I would assume the answer is no. Based on,
But you never know, and for instance, if a company wanted to situate themselves in Fluvanna County, let's say an IT company. And they started looking around at the different jurisdictions of what was more, better for their situation. They might find out that right outside of Scottsville is the best situation, but not in Scottsville. Yeah, that's one consideration, yeah.
right,
And right now, it might not be an issue, but who knows, 3, 4, 5 years could be more important.
okay,
And if we don't tackle it now, maybe it won't get tackled in 5 years, maybe we're not the ones here, it might get lost in the clutter.
yeah,
They both need to say the same thing, because if someone wishing to do urban development would look at Fluvanna County's comp plan, they might buy the land thinking they could do that. You know,
Right.
so they both have the same thing.
Definitely, any differences between the two plans or documents could raise questions and potential litigation.
yeah. Did you recommend that town take town administration take action on that and get some clarification about the zoning discrepancies?
Javier and I are talking today about maybe just having a conversation to get started.
Okay,
And we'll see how that conversation goes, see what they're doing. How their company is going. And then we can report back, suggest the next steps.
great,
Maybe there are no next steps, maybe there is, some dialogue at the elected official level, so on and so forth. If
Thank
it is a concern for the.
So it's set still that way, and the one they're set to probably adopt in about 3 months.
Yes, it is. The thing about the comp plan, it's a very simple document. And the plan is very zoomed out. So it's really very similar to their old plan. All you can really see is purple blob there. It might look a little bit bigger than geographically what the town's portion of Fluvanna is. But I think that's why we had to have a conversation perhaps to start it off and see what their thoughts are. I would assume that they might not change this purple blob. Pink blob, they might just proceed with it as it was in the last comp plan. But it'd be great to understand, where did this business one zoning come from for these lots that are within the town? Why is the laundromat residential here, so on and so forth?
It's very puzzling.
And this is live off of their comp plan screenshot of today. The GIS system. Okay, so you can see Scottsville also highlighted here against other towns. Columbia used to be a town also. Palmyra is not incorporated, but the town seat, so on and so forth like that.
Isn't that the abandoned town?
So directing the conversation back to Albemarle County, I just want to kind of highlight a few other maps in the 2015 comp plan. Here, in the growth areas, the development areas, Scottsville is clearly shown, at least with an outline, so it's acknowledged. I just also want to mention, I went back to the old comp plans of Albemarle County, and Scottsville was a development area in 71, 77, 82, and 89. And then gradually, over time, all the other development areas and some of the other crossroads, so on and so forth, all were concentrated towards the ring and Crozet. So that's been the trend. Just to also mention, in that comp plan, some town assets, residential private structures are mentioned as county assets, which, it's within the county, but in other later drawings, they even show the town. So is that fair to highlight town assets when you don't even show the town in the comp plan? Yeah. One question. So Doria Park, for instance, is highlighted in the previous comp plan. So now we're moving on to the current comp plan that they're formulating, which is HC 44. So they mentioned in some of their many documents that they put online that Scottsville is not identified as a development area. Since the town has jurisdiction over decisions relating to the town's land use. However, Scottsville functionally has acted like the county's development areas by providing commercial services to adjacent residents. So it's saying it sort of is. But it's not designated as such. So along with this text is this plan, which I'll show in more detail on the next page. You can see there's no town outline there at all. Yeah. And basically what they say here is combined development areas, that's the blue areas, and the town of Scottsville have a total estimated population of 64,000 people. So they're combining Scottsville population with those development areas. But the plan shows that Scottsville is a rural area. So basically what they're doing, they're taking Scottsville's population and justifying development up north. If you read these two documents together.
It's in. Is it over in Crozet?
Yeah,
29 north, you see the blue up there, so Crozet is on the west side. Then 29 north is Forest Lakes,
Gotcha.
and then that's towards Lake Monticello, Ravenna, I think is over there. So all those different areas,
Gotcha.
and then south of it.
Oh, I was just joking around. It's not. You don't have to lay it out for me.
so these are both documents from the AC 44 website. They have to do a build out analysis based on the population numbers. So basically they can justify a certain amount of their
Oh, I
number of McDonald's or some such.
Nothing to see over here, yeah.
So just to highlight, I look at the GIS website, Scottsville is very clearly designated on the GIS website. So there's a lot of, I guess we could call it confusion.
Well, that's the site that kind of, that's all the real estate revenue, right? So, of course, that.
So I just recap, I showed these last meeting, but the town resources are all shown here. They miss out on the police department of Scottsville, which actually serves the county and sometimes when they need it to. So that might be an icon we might suggest be added. Here's that plan we just looked at, nothing there. And then this crossroads community is covered up. So this really precludes any open and equitable conversation. What is Scottsville in the county plan, in my opinion? So these are just for consideration, but the real statistics I pulled, I added the PDF documents together for the 2015 comp plan, 2,000 some pages. Scottsville as a word that's in the text was mentioned 601 times, and that's Scottsville every 3.4 pages. In the current documents for AC 44 online, there's over 1,000 pages. It was a lot so far. Scottsville is only mentioned 61 times. So you can see a huge drop in its potential significance.
Maybe we're gonna be in the other half, once they get it all done.
They're waiting for our letter and our
That's right,
communication.
that's right.
Well, what's
Think
missing?
positive.
What's missing?
Well, maybe advocacy, yeah.
Like Nancy Gill or something?
A couple Nancy's and
Yeah.
Donna Price.
Yeah.
I did meet the gentleman that's running for Donna's position. He was at the comp plan discussion at Walton Middle School.
Mhm.
He has a large ear and he's willing to listen. He said he might come to some of our engagement events in the future if he's invited.
What's his name?
Pruitt is his last name, Matthew Pruitt, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I believe he's running unopposed. So this was just the open question I had was, what are the implications? And I think we've kind of discussed this already of how Scottsville is positioned in different comp plans for the counties. So for Kulvana, as I mentioned, the staff can discuss with the planning director over there. In terms of Albemarle, if this is a concern, I know the chair suggested we draft a letter. And it became such a potentially hot topic. I didn't want to proceed further, but if there's clear guidance, if the mayor was going to sign this letter, we might as well have a discussion with him too about how the town wants to position itself. So these are just potentially an open conversation.
One of the things I will say that I am a believer in data. And I like. Well, I shouldn't say don't like the graph, but it's helpful to see the graph
Mhm.
and it makes its own case. So one of the things you could simply say is, you could say to the county, this is what we see. What's up? We'd like to be thought of a little bit more. What's missing? Why the difference? I mean, it's a good question. There are questions to ask.
Do you think Ron would be involved in that?
Sure, yeah, so Lincoln has identified data that. It's easy to see we would have trouble with, and we would want them to. Justify. A larger role for Scottsville in this new plan or explain to us what's going on. And again, it may be like I was getting at before, there's an aspect of advocacy that increases how people view you, and it's not just one person, it's multiple touch points that make a difference, and that's something we have to think about as a planning commission, as a council, as a town. What are the touch points that we want to pursue in the future that will get county resources focused our way?
And if you hadn't done the research, you wouldn't even know that probably.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. It's very helpful.
You know, it'd be good to ask the county have representation on their portion of the complaint.
Thanks for the bad news.
Yeah, and they're going about the comp plan process very systematically. And it's a layered process. If you don't start your advocacy early, they're gonna be like, hey, you never said anything earlier. We
Sure.
already
Right.
finalized this. We would probably do the same thing.
Right, absolutely.
But I know this is not directly relevant to the Scottsville comp plan, but it really is.
Well, it is, because a lot of the suggestions that we have involve our role in the bigger picture, and even the feedback that we've gotten at public hearings, or we're not getting enough services from the county, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
And their materials already show, they've released into the public, the normal statistics that are long-term trends that Southern Albemarle County has lower income, lower education rates, so on and so forth, worse health rates, so on and so forth. So there's already justification there that something needs to be done. But still, resources seem to be trending towards the.
More, yeah.
So. This also prompts discussion on should Scottsville designate an urban development area here? That would basically retain our population of 550 to 600 people, and those resources here, rather than allow them to be distributed northward.
Well, how do you view, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, God,
How do you view the population here in the town? Because clearly the town of Scottsville and its borders is a vital part of the town, but there are also the people in the surrounding counties, you know, who are being serviced by our community.
That's a really good point.
And how that impacts, because our population does not look impressive when talking about a distribution of resources, but when it comes to the people who come here to town for services and so on, that's the important thing, I think.
For Councilor Morse's strategic planning discussion, that also came up. How do we quantify that?
Yeah,
So one aspect of the comp plan, one recommendation or strategy could be the town invest or get support from UVA or an economist somewhere, quantify that
Yeah.
pull that the town has, not only for Albemarle, for Fluvanna, but also for Buckingham.
and is there any kind of tourist component to that, you know, like. If we're gonna beef that up, we're gonna have even more people coming to use our services and things, and so. Perhaps if we beef that up, we can be part of the discussion a little bit more.
If there was a document or report that said, hey, the town pulls in 16,000 residents on a bi-monthly basis for groceries, pharmacy, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
That's one piece of the justification puzzle.
right.
And that has to do with the comp plan, even though it's not a physical thing, it's a
Sure.
spatial thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we're paying the same taxes as other residents in the county, so we want the equal representation.
I think it's a big problem in Scottsville that our town is only considered to be 560 some people or whatever that actual number is. But if you look at the actual people who have Scottsville as a, residence or zip code, it's much larger. So it might again be worth discussing expanding our boundaries as a town to encompass the people, I mean, besides Fluvanna, we can't incorporate them. But to incorporate the people who have the 24590 Scottsville address. I don't know, I mean, it seems disingenuous to say, well, Scottsville is only 500 and something people. When that actually isn't the case, that's the actual town. And then, we open up, I think I've mentioned this to a few council members before, or commissioners, that then you open up the pool of people who can volunteer for town positions and who can serve on committees. And, it's not just pulling from the same 560 people. Because
What are the ramifications of that?
right, yeah, and I don't know what that is either. I think it would be a really interesting exploration to find out the answers to those questions. And then also, I think it was very clear to me that people who live here did not want to have such a large expansion of population when, it came time to vote on the tire factory. So if we're not gonna brand ourselves as, an urban development area or, or anything like that, we have been designated as a tourist town. What could we do in the comp plan to really focus on that as the benefit or the moneymaker or the incentive that this town needs to get on the map with Albemarle County? Like, there's gotta be something we can do.
So there is a hotel study underway. I'm not sure if Mr. Lawless mentioned this. Right before you left, he passed the hotel consultant to me. I guess Mr. Lawless got a small grant. Maybe it wasn't through the town, but maybe it was a regional grant. So the hotel consultant is writing a report about could Scottsville support a small boutique hotel for small conferences. This would be more like a work networking session. It wouldn't be a large
Right.
conference, but a retreat, something like that. So this hotel consultant is supposed to come back quite soon with this one report. So that's one piece of the tourism puzzle, a hotel
Right.
or Airbnb or homestays. And so forth. So I think this is all integrated, and that's the challenge of the comp plan. We have to put all the pieces together to put together the best puzzle possible, I guess we could say,
Right.
the next 5 years. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do come to Scottsville for restaurants
Yeah,
and the stores, but I've really been surprised of seeing people on the street that I know that are from other areas too. Yeah, I'm here just to shop and eat and
yeah,
spend time in Scottsville.
Food
Yeah.
volume is a very interesting,
Study.
way to look at, there are people that come up from Buckingham.
yeah,
All over the place, I wouldn't expect that from Buckingham, but they don't have that resource as available, so it's interesting. To see.
We don't have Buckingham doesn't have little shops and doesn't have the restaurants.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, it's a good place to go. The bakery brings in a lot from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, so just recapping the two previous surveys. We had already talked about the 2018 survey, which has some interesting housing data. But it has a lot of housing types. So in the new survey, we were talking last week that maybe we can narrow down the housing types, kind of cluster them together to get more clear guidance on which ones to focus on. Also, this survey, really highlights the zip code of Scottsville. You can see that here in the middle. 24590, so that's really should be the first question of our survey, you know, what zip code do you live in? That really helps to, you know, drive where they're coming from or their positions. Also, I came across recently this survey that was done a year later, 2019, for the West Downtown Small Area Plan. This was performed by the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. So we had a survey in 2018 and then another survey in 2019. This survey only had 131 responses, but it was available for 1 month. This, you know, cut the data a little bit differently. It was really focusing on ratings, as in what aspects would you rate as the top priority. So here you can see traffic solutions for Route 20. I think we knew that. Professional medical services, job opportunities. This is not mentioned or hasn't been on our radar for our upcoming survey. Parks and Rec space. This is the properties are right. We know this is an area of convergence and historic items. Yeah. So transportation obstacles, we are meeting with VDOT soon, so these are good to keep in mind. Lack of sidewalks, we already knew that. We're looking at try to focus on that. So on and so forth. Priorities for housing. Again, the data's pretty much about the same here. Generally all preferred, but we do see that twin or duplex and townhouses are not rated very high. But you know, these are affordable housing types. That's really the balancing act. So last week we were discussing about different ways we could reword the survey to really get potentially better data, more precise data on affordable housing. Okay, so here I suggest we go ahead with the survey. So just to recap from our last meeting, you know, we talked about who's our target audience. So I think zooming in on the zip codes will be the best approach for that. And town council work session already determined that we should choose a monthly subscription of the survey as opposed to a yearly. Okay, then the survey recap. Online and iPad is probably going to be necessary. iPad is in, if you have an event, you take the iPad with you. Because some of these questions are a decision tree that we were talking about, and it's very difficult to do that in a paper-based survey. Like skip number 3, 4, 5, it doesn't really work so well. So on and so forth. So moving on. So here's the zip code of Scottsville. So that's proposed as the very first question. That'll give a lot of geographic accuracy. Also the question of where do you work? And then the first decision logic tree is, you know, I live in Scottsville, I frequently visit the town, or this is my first time visiting Scottsville. Okay, and then for those answering, I live in Scottsville, and so on and so forth. This has remained the same. The first 3 questions, these would be really enter your most important items, your words, and we've turned this into a simple word cloud. This isn't meant to be a, you know, really detailed statistical analysis, but we can see keywords and things that jump out there. And then what type of housing would you like to see in Scottsville? This is where we narrowed down the types. We combined, let's see, townhomes, duplex and triplex all together, changed other to none. So maybe people don't want to see any more types of housing. So that would be the none.
Could we, what do you think about the triplex? Do you think we could get rid of that? I don't really foresee a situation where we'd ever have a triplex in town. I don't know. What do you think?
For this survey?
Yeah, because
Well,
I feel like,
I like the idea of combining townhomes with, I mean, yeah, I don't think it needs to be separated out.
well, like condos or yeah, townhomes or duplex, but I think triplex, I don't know. I don't know if we need that one on there.
It's one more way to make it a little bit more affordable, but.
Right. I just feel like based on the last few rounds we've had with people in the housing, that if you say triplex, it turns people off. I don't think people view those favorably.
What constitutes a triplex? Just
Yeah,
3 connected apartments.
Yeah,
Homes.
yeah,
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know, we could leave it. I don't know. I just,
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
really
I
see
think for
that
the
as-
purpose of the survey, I think eliminate both duplex and triplex and just keep townhome.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay. Definitely triplex is not a very common term.
Mhm.
Right.
This is just pulled from the previous survey, but I agree, it's worth simplifying. Okay, so then this is a question that we developed last week, and just let me know if I got the phrasing correct, but we also wanted to kind of, you know, put in the fact that this question is looking over the next 5 to 10 years. And you know, growth has positive and negative aspects, you know. Do you want to see no growth, moderate growth, or a lot of growth? These are the questions we developed.
Mhm.
And
so the growth being population growth or other growth?
well, I think that it's kind of open it in that way. We could be more precise in terms of population, or be more precise in terms of area or.
I mean, I think people bring businesses, that growth would be a natural, you know, subset of that or whatever, but. Like, it seems pretty open-ended, and I think a lot of residents here would just give a flat no, you know, none. That's just my opinion, but that was my first reaction was, okay.
Well,
You know, they don't want it to change.
The best ideas, so.
Yeah.
So, I'll just insert the word population growth in there.
I guess if that will help, I just felt like that was a little open-ended,
Well, this will be probably the most controversial issue of the
yeah.
comp plan, of course.
Well, yeah, and I think that oftentimes, residents don't really understand that. They think growth equals. It's not gonna be anything like we used to remember this town as or whatever, and, you know, I really feel like the growth can be a good thing. You know, we don't wanna die as a town, we want to progress, and I think if we can, you know, show people that the growth could be good without being destructive to the charm of the town. That could help, so. I don't know how to do that, I'll leave that to you.
Do you think this explanation is even-handed? Because we were talking last week, if you just ask someone about growth or population growth, they won't really consider the different, you know, positive and negative aspects, you know, what I mean? Level-handed thoughts.
And you said, you know, small growth, medium growth, higher growth, I mean. You show levels of that, I'm just saying to kind of. Qualify that in some way.
But if we're talking about the town's tax base, I mean, isn't that business?
Well,
Right,
meals
yeah.
tax right now, yeah. People buying meals. Javier and I tried to go out to dinner tonight in the Chinese restaurant, the tavern, and what's the third one that's closed, so we had to go to
That's
Subway.
Yeah, what is it, Monday, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll just say, I'm fine with the wording as is, but I'm also fine if y'all make a few changes. I think it's clear enough. Somebody's gonna say no, moderate or a lot of growth. I mean, that, I think if you want to define it further, that's fine too. Either way, I think it's fine.
I would vote to give it some sort of flavor that shows. What they're saying they want more of or less of, you know.
So adding the word.
I like the population growth too,
Okay.
yeah.
Cause I think to get to the crux of the matter, that's been our recent, you know, maybe hot topic, that could be clarified in some way.
Right, cause if you say, yeah, I wanna see a lot of new businesses in town, that could be considered growth.
Yeah,
But no, I don't want more people to move to town.
but the businesses won't come with their people.
Oh, I
So it's
agree,
like-
yeah, I agree, but I think people,
Education On that. topic,
Yeah,
I think would be
yeah.
great.
and yeah, maybe instead of saying such as increasing the town's tax base, cause that seems very. Financial and kind of analytical, but like changing the character of the town, that like kind of hits me in the gut, like, no, I don't want that. like, I don't care about the tax base. I definitely don't want the character to change. So maybe saying something like such as attracting more businesses or, you know, and services to town would kind of be on the same playing field as
Economic
character.
growth.
Yeah,
Would you want another
Character
question?
of the town.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe that, like you said, needs to be expanded a little bit, maybe to another question or a subset question.
Like one could be about, so if you go the population route and one, you could say. Growth in business or something, you know, you could. And that's where you could mention something about the tax base.
And another way that the tax base question is, you know, a hot topic right now is because there is the debate of a local real estate tax. You know, I don't even know what that would look like. It would be nice to get little, you know, go out there and get little bits of information. I don't know how many people are for that or against it. I think the town, you know, could really benefit from a local real estate tax. And I'm a resident. I think taxes are sometimes important. And I think our town has shown that we could really benefit from more of a budget for the things that we're kind of trying to develop right now.
I think that the growth that the town is wants to do, things you wanna do. You really can't tax your business if you already have out, because they're pretty much
right.
Right.
very price tag.
And they're not being heard right now, and that's a really tough spot too. I think
Yeah.
more attention needs to be garnered for the chamber, a link to them. I talk to people who are business owners and part of the chamber and things like that, and I think everybody's pretty burnt out. And, you know, doesn't feel like there is a connection there. I've been kind of touting that as an important thing. I don't think that anybody's listening, but I'm gonna keep saying it,
Yeah,
so. Cause if we lose them, we lose truly our tax base right now.
Real estate tax, that question is a potential. Item included in the comp plan, because it has to do with physical space, and capital improvements.
It would deal also with how you're gonna get to what you're planning if you want to.
right.
How you're gonna get it. You know,
Like a capital.
yeah, how they're gonna get there.
So, would the commissioners want us to, add a question focused on real estate tax?
I don't think so, but I think.
I think it's
Yeah,
too soon for that.
But yeah, I do.
They're not, if they don't understand the whole picture.
So,
I don't even know, I heard that the council was considering it. I don't know if it's an item there again.
Well,
Is
it
it
was,
just a debate issue?
it was, as we looked at the budget, it was a discussion for, and so the budgets, we're already into this, so that's done. And we're now into next year's budget, so. we
But did
not
they
do that.
decide to not do it then?
Right, it's not,
Yeah,
oh, you would have heard about it.
I'm sure.
Well, I think it's definitely something that we should consider talking about in the comp plan, because it's more than just a, hey, what do you think? It really needs research.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it needs to be a
What
real,
sources of
real
revenue-
conversation.
What sources of revenue to support.
And maybe we need to cycle back to just growth. I don't. Maybe this just proves that we're.
well, then I read number
sorry,
8, which is,
disgusting.
if you prefer growth, what type of growth? Business, housing, industrial, or other?
Yeah.
So,
Flowers, trees, you know.
Yeah, so that
No.
being said, then maybe it is okay just to leave 7 the way it is, and they can fill in number 8 if they had a preference.
Yeah, I guess I could have read ahead a little bit. I don't know.
but if you're doing, especially if it's an electronic survey, are you gonna see number 8? what, as you're reading number 7, or are you
No,
just
but-
gonna see number 7 in a vacuum?
They'll answer number 7 and then number 8 will help them expand on what they're referring.
But
But
maybe
you don't
prime
know
them.
that number 8 is coming to
Right.
help you
At
expand.
the end of question
So-
7,
I
like,
still have a gut.
you'll be provided the opportunity to specify in more detail.
Right,
In the next question. That way you're just kind of like saying, you focus on something more specific when you're answering this
Well,
question.
let's see
Yeah.
what your follow-up questions are, because this is a lot or a little. What do you have for nods or?
So here, if you prefer growth, these are the things I thought about. I did not think about population specifically, because all of these things are related with population, but we could. Also add
Well, we
population,
know that,
yeah,
I'm just saying.
So. These are the tourist questions. Then, this was a question for all. About housing. So everyone will be asked, should the town prioritize development of affordable housing?
Okay.
And defining affordable housing, this is what I looked at from the American Community Survey, which is part of the Census Bureau's. Median household income for Scottsville, I think it's from 2021. So let's just put the number on it.
Can I ask you, this is just. I'm gonna go back to the tourist one, because you skipped over the tourist one.
Sure.
Being somebody who works in the tour industry. I would like to suggest you add a question. And it would be. So when you say here, what are the top 3 reasons for visiting Scottsville? What are Scottsville's top amenities? This kind of goes to. Where we are geographically is. What I would ask the question, what sites near Scottsville are tourist sites that. Bring you to this area, or. Like, for example, being in the tour industry, you have to figure out how a tour relates to another thing you're gonna see. So I would argue that at times Scottsville is a side destination. It's not the main reason people come there. They stop here because they're on their way to Charlottesville, or they're on their way to Appomattox or Walton's Mountain or whatever. And so I would want to know. What are we missing? Are they going to Trump Winery? Are they going to another winery? Are they going to the brewery? Like, what is it that might not, it's not in Scottsville, but it's nearby, but they're stopping in Scottsville to be a part of that tour? So, and I do know that's not an uncommon thing, like people like that come through here. They'll usually say Scottsville is a stop of a larger journey, and determining, because what that does then is it just says when Scottsville positions ourselves in tourism, we want to say, well, Scottsville's near Monticello because, or Scottsville is near the James River, or it's near whatever. Because we know that site is where people are going. And so when you think of that site, you want to think of Scottsville. We want you to think of Scottsville because we want you to know that you can have a beer, get a drink of wine, or eat a meal, whatever. So anyway, something that I'm not going to try to word it for you, but something that makes you think of whatever's nearby, because it'd be helpful for us to know a little bit more about that.
Well, I think you mentioned what sites near Scottsville bring you to this location.
Yeah.
Try to think about those lines. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
I think we should definitely have some I think I like Molly's suggestion of having more specificity around the growth question. So business growth and population growth, because then those other questions kind of naturally fall in with those, you know, like what kind of housing are you more favorable towards, or you know, you can kind of lump all of those questions in with like population growth. And then if you ask about business growth and tax base, you know, you could ask some of those tax based questions. Are you in favor? I think I heard someone say, are you in favor of, or like what kinds of tax revenue are you in favor of? So you can lump those questions together, or what kind of businesses do you want to see more of in Scottsville? You can lump all of that together.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's.
Fireworks.
Mhm.
Makes me
So I'll
wanna
swap
have
out
under the
tax
desk.
space
It's a little
here
grumpy.
and reword attracting more businesses and services. And then sources of revenue could be a different question,
Yeah,
rather than asking, do you want a real estate act, yes or no? So that would obviously,
Yeah.
sources of revenue.
Would you?
right. Are we gonna ask people to self-identify with how much income? Do we have any of those questions?
We don't have that question specifically, but if they are proponents of housing, we ask them how much you would pay for rent or how
Right.
much you would pay for buying a house.
Do you think it would be worth adding a question about, like, what is your median household income, and have some ranges? Um,
So this was tourism, so thank you very much, Mr. Grisco. This is the question about affordable housing, so would you prioritize affordable housing, yes or no? We can also have a question of what is your median household income?
yeah,
And have you or someone you know looked for a home in the last year in Scottsville?
The only thing about question number 13, when you're saying should the town prioritize, that makes people might think that that's the town using its money and resources, and that might be something that will turn people off, whereas we're really just kind of talking about zoning.
Yeah, I understand the point.
This is such a tough issue.
yeah,
And when you're looking at the median household income, which is almost 60,000 a year. It doesn't really kind of pull everybody in. I think it pulls a lot of people to feel like maybe they're way out of the league or whatever, but that's interesting. That almost 60,000 is the threshold.
It is, that's nothing.
And we were talking
interesting,
about-
and is interesting as in that is a high number or a low number?
I think it's a high number, but I don't know.
Well, we were talking last week that basically affordable housing means a lot of things.
It does. And
Yeah,
it's not the same as, there's so many different nuances of that issue.
Well, and that's why it's helpful to tell people, okay, this is the number we're talking about. So
Yeah.
whatever idea you have may or may not fit in with that. So this is what we're talking about.
And as related to other hot topics of late, there have been some pretty, I would say, offensive comments as to what might bring, if we had affordable housing, what might come to Scottsville.
Right.
And I think that it's all about education and clarification in that instance. So I find that the median household income is maybe not the best.
could I ask a question about that number? Is that a dual income? Is that assuming dual income, or is that?
That's the average household.
Yeah, so it
So
could
it could be a
be,
single person.
could be 6
combining a
people.
bunch of-
Okay.
people that-
Whatever you define as your household, including however many children that includes. But I like keeping this number in because it really gives people that benchmark, like this is what we're talking about. So they could either say, wow, that's the number we're talking about, or they could, modify their answer based upon that.
That's interesting. I had a different reaction, but I hear what you're saying.
Another possibility would be we don't try to tackle housing in the survey because it is so complex. We tackle housing through engagement events.
I think we're gonna have the best opportunity to get people through the survey, and I think this is our opportunity to start asking those questions, and then we can fine tune it a little bit more in the meetings. I mean, we're only looking at 14 questions at this point, so unless it's good, so 17 overall, I think it's reasonable to ask. You don't want to ask too many questions because then you start
Right.
turning people off. I think we're okay.
So 14 is what we discussed last week, really targeting the people that answer the subsequent questions. Are you looking to rent, or are you looking to buy, or you haven't been looking? So if the person answers yes, I've been looking to rent, what is the rental range? Because the discussion point we had last week was if everyone from the zip code has been, asked this question, a lot of people aren't looking to rent. They might give some off the wall
Yeah.
answer that's not really honing our data. So also for the buying, some people might have not looked to buy recently, but those that have can answer that directly.
I feel like I'd like to see an option for both, because like for me, myself as a renter, I would much prefer to be putting $900 a month towards a mortgage than to line somebody else's pockets. So I am interested in rental opportunities because that's what my current economic basis is, but I'm also interested in housing as well. And so I would like some availability for people to express interest in both at the same time, as opposed to one or the other.
That's a good point.
I'm kind of curious to know what our rental. What falls within these categories in the rentals here in town. I know that I just talked to my son the other day who lives up by the airport. And he pays $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom house. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
For rent?
that's
I'm
well
assuming.
more than my mortgage,
Yeah.
Okay, and that's really tough. I feel for him. I do, but I don't have a sense of what it is here. Anyway, maybe that's a discussion for another time. But I don't know if, $500 to $999 is really a valid range.
Well, there's under.
Or under
500.
500. That's a
This
joke.
conversation, it's a really good question.
That gets
like,
you a
I
spot
don't
under the
know.
bridge.
There, I
A
mean, there
little
might
cop.
be some
That's right.
people, there might be, renting from
Because
families
the
or,
previous survey from 2018,
Right.
these were even lower. If you remember
Yeah.
from the tire factory discussion, the owner of, is it the James?
Yeah.
Apartments, he came and spoke in the public
Yeah,
hearing. He said his were more towards the lower end, there's other options, yeah, I think we could learn a lot from this.
yeah, yeah.
So and here we leave these like it is for now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then final question would be, do you have any other feedback or comments? We can maybe get information and what we're going to do about
I shudder to think.
it.
Well, I hope people will fill it out. I think devoid of any kind of A, B, C, or D,
Right.
that sometimes ends up playing. But
Okay, moving on to outreach, listening events, just wanna highlight this event that I went to with my daughter, you can see her at Walton Middle School, on 6th of June, it was the day after our previous meeting together. It was very lightly attended, I think 10 or less, community members were there over 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Javier and I met in the parking lot. And they
So
did have
2
this.
out of 10.
You were 20% of the audience. Great.
Sarah Woods was there, one gentleman by the last name of Van Cleef, he lives over by Espa.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
He thinks his family had something to do with the nature preserve long ago. But there were more county staff than participants at any given time, and overall a lack of energy.
Yeah, so this just speaks to the value of the survey.
Exactly, yeah. But for this, engagement activity, it was really an icebreaker when you checked in. My daughter enjoyed it. The green dots were actually from a previous event that they had. The orange dots were actually from from the Walton Middle School event, so you can see. We live up here at Ryo Road, and then there's someone else from the Scottsville area, but. No one else had filled that in yet.
Oh, my.
But basically, from that activity, we're talking last week about doing this for Scottsville. And we have two maps. If we want to use it in the future, we have the regional map. You could put a sticker up when you come to an event where you are from the region, or if you're from Scottsville specifically, you could put a sticker on the Scottsville map. If you thought this was useful. So we have either all one color sticker or multiple color stickers based on what type of clientele we might have come to the event. But this would help us to understand who are coming to these events. Are they all town residents or are they all regional residents? So we need to engage better with the town. Also for, are they all Buckingham County or are they all Pocahontas?
Yeah.
So we would need to make it very clear, if you live in Scottsville, stick your sticker on this one. If you
Yeah.
don't, use this
So
map.
this would be done at registration, so if someone would literally hand you a sticker, so we have these in on the already. So that's ready to go out, put it on another piece of foam cord, which we also just ordered.
Any ideas for getting people in for these kinds of events to get information?
Well, you know, besides these activities, we already talked about this list of events, and a few others have popped up.
Sure.
I think if we go to where people are already, then we're gonna have a higher participation than sticking it out in the middle of nowhere at the middle school.
And we should consider that, like places like the brewery, for instance, on Wednesdays, community tap nights.
Yeah.
The idea is that's meant to serve as a meeting place for the community. Like most recently, they did a community tap night for the Boys and Girls Club, and that was very, very well attended. Like
Yeah.
you don't see the brewery that busy and lively as often as you used to. So I think that we should use those venues as well.
Mhm.
How's the website coming along?
I think it was discussed by Ms. Morris early August.
Yeah.
Early August?
Right.
Because we are just not getting information for mailing lists and things like that. I think that was something that was gonna be tackled by the new. Anyway, I want to reiterate that we need these communication items. I know that we've got the monthly now that's out there. But I really think that the town needs to hear from us and we need to come together on one kind of communication. Because that's what's happening. I don't even know about certain events that are happening around and I'd really like to know.
So in the Word document for the comp plan we have in our shared folder, there's a list of outreach mechanisms monthly. Nancy Gill today reinforced that she's really excited to broadcast any event we have in the future. I also heard Food Line earlier today during our meeting as a way of meeting people from other counties.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was how I kind of saw that cross section of what's coming here to Scottsville, but yeah, you're right. It is, everybody can say.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with the suggestion that we try to piggyback on other existing events, like at the brewery. That would be great, Boys and Girls Club and the brewery all combined with parents and so on and so forth. So this goes along with my question about the sequencing. Do we start our community engagement events before we consult town council? Some sort of I think we need to discuss a little bit more with town council, get everyone on the same page, something like. And also the website is very important because we're gonna have QR codes. But if we link the QR code to our old website and the new website switches over, it's not such a good thing. So that's why all this has to be sequenced at the same time.
Yeah. And
I agree.
staff will have training next week
Yeah.
when things slow down.
What?
And then,
Looking at us next week.
and that'll give me a better feeling of how we can make that transition to help out with the comp plan. I'll know where I'm standing, I guess, so that's what.
So what I would suggest for this list of events or any others we have, in the future, it'd be great if we could have perhaps two commissioners per event, and I'd also be willing to go along to any of these. But we need to really tag team these events, and then at the end of the event, we need to write a short summary of who we engaged with and what was learned. And this could just be bullet points. This is not supposed to be some extensive report. We don't have time for that, but it's really just to capture the main items. And this is typical for all comp plans, like Albemarle County writes a summary of all of their events. And this is important to let people know that they were heard at this event, they took the time to talk.
Yeah, and when we're doing our bibliography of results, we can say we had X number of engagements. These are some of the things that we learned at each event.
To Lincoln's point of engagement, not AC-44, CBO plans together, and it is common practice to go, as somebody said, on the commission to where people are at. So they'd show up to a basketball tournament over the summer. They'd show up. I don't know if they showed up for really that time, but like community events where people are gathering together.
Well, when we're ready, I'll do the market anytime. I'm glad to go and sit from 9 to 1 and talk to people if you need me.
Yep, so I'll put your name next to that one, thank you.
Yes.
I'll do that
it's
too.
farmers market.
I'll do the farmer's market. And I'd like to sign up for the library
Okay.
and or Yancey.
And yes, I can do others too, but
And we can have more than just planning commissioners, like.
Yeah, more the merrier. But I think if you have. Few posters on easels, we have more easels in the back room, you have a few flyers that we prepare. People walk up to you and ask you questions, what do you here for? And that's how you start to engage.
well, I'm sure everybody gets this. Like, I've had so many conversations just this past week with people who are feeling a little left out or just not sure what's going on and things of that nature. And I just think it's time to come together as a community. So I think people at the market will really enjoy being able to kind of have some sounding boards.
So with this, I'll also prepare a tabling sheet. So tabling sheet is a list of everything you need to take with you for an event. So
Yeah.
I did this 8 days ago for Juneteenth on Exmoor, it's on the Eastern Shore. So we had everything we needed, but we didn't think about it being a windy day.
Right.
So one of our partners brought a tent, but we didn't have tent space. We have things to hold, I think, down on the table.
Right.
I'm not saying that we definitely need that for Scottsville, but that's just an example where the first event we did on the Eastern Shore, we kind of are adjusting.
Well, we would greatly appreciate that.
So a list will help also reduce anxiety, because you might do a few events, one month and next month, and it's not really fresh in your mind, but you have the list, okay, I got all these things. We go to do.
What about meeting with the Chamber of Commerce specifically, or business owners, local business owners?
I don't know if anybody's talking about it. I don't know if it's in our purview, but certainly, we could put it out there as what would.
Like, what if we just
be
had a
the
Chamber
first
of
step.
Commerce night?
Well, unfortunately, they have an event tonight that we're missing because we're
Oh,
here.
really?
They have a meet and greet at the brewery tonight.
Oh, how do you know about that?
Yeah.
How do people find out about things around here?
I know through Scan,
Yeah.
so I don't know, maybe they need to do a better job of letting us know about their events too. But no, it's a really good point.
It's a
It's a
Scan
big part
event?
of they invited Scan,
Oh, they invited Scan.
so I don't know who else they invited or how that happened,
Ah.
or I don't know, but if it's at the brewery, I assume it
Yeah.
might have been advertised. I don't know.
So case in point, connections could be made. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And Ms. Carter just reminded me that having town councilors involved would be even better. Because you have
Yeah.
town councilor listening to the same thing the planning commissioner is listening to, and the issue comes up, then both can chime in later, hey, yeah, we did hear about that from the community. Let's not forget about that.
Well, I think it's important at some point to talk about what's being kind of gathered as far as information. We come up with a lot of really good suggestions here. Some are picked up, some are not. I would really like to know if people get in front of us or in front of town council and make a suggestion, that's some sort of acknowledgement or notice of that. you know, we don't find this is our purview, we will send this over to chamber or whatever that might be. I think that's a frustration for me, that it's not always considered properly. But I think that people need to be, I've gone to town council before, and that's where I put in my 2 cents about a real estate tax. Given the fact that our budget was, well, I won't even characterize it, but it was, you know, difficult this year. So, anyway, I'm just saying.
Okay, so got some names down for this list, we'll keep adding to it gradually. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is the first discussion item I would suggest today. When should community engagement events begin? And it seems to me, we really need to understand the strategic planning process. Because one of the other town councils came to the office today and started asking, well, what questions are you gonna ask the community? I was like, well, we don't really know the questions yet, because we, in my mind, haven't heard about the strategic planning decisions. Yeah, because usually I'll have a slide that goes strategic plan, comp plan, and then updating the zoning and other regulations, right? So I'll just keep moving, but this is, I think, an important decision, and then the timing of the strategic planning process and the joint work session is important.
Just so it's unfortunate saying this, I mean, we have our largest event about to happen, you know, where it's. Where, yeah.
Yeah, so can you get this rolled out in the next 12 hours?
That'd be great.
We should have a float in the
14.
parade.
Why do we
Planning
not
commission
have
float.
one?
Huh.
I think it would be great.
It would be
It
great.
would be great.
Okay, so just keeping rolling here, comp plan revisions. So I also wanted to take the chance to talk about the Virginia statutory requirements. So I've highlighted here, there's a whole article, it's this number 15.22223. This talks about all the requirements of comprehensive plan. But what I've done here is I've pulled out the notable items that I've noticed that the existing comp plan doesn't really cover. Because there are some new requirements. I'll just run through quickly. But to capture this, I will create a checklist of all these requirements, and later on, we'll just go back and double check that we have completed them all. First item is the capital improvement program or plan. This is very important, as we talked earlier, and there's not one in the comp plan. Next item, action plan for affordable housing. The current comp plan does talk a little bit about affordable housing, but it doesn't get past talking about just the need. I think what the comp plan is asking for, needing here is, you know, actual action path of progress. Moving on, the next new requirement since 2021 is talking about manufactured housing. So this is the question that for me is manufactured housing, is that termed as mobile homes or true manufactured housing, for instance, like Mr. Quick's proposal for this Lugano lot.
And I think we have that covered, yeah.
Do we?
Do we?
Well, I word searched manufactured housing or manufactured in the comp plan, and manufactured only came up in the terminology for manufacturing and tire factory.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not interpreting housing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. If we have to put the affordable housing in the comp plan because it has to be in there, then do we need to ask the question in the survey? Like if it has to be in there,
We'll come up with strategies for making it affordable, or
Yeah, right. I
mean, we
couldn't
don't-
begin to know, but
Well, we
The
have some
action
data
plan.
points to inform our plan, I think, because we could put something in the comp plan that's just plucked out of thin air, but it doesn't really mean it's actionable. Unless we
Right.
have good data to support it.
so what is the issue around manufactured housing? I mean, it shall address manufactured housing, whether we're in favor of it.
it
or
says
not in
to
favor.
promote it as a source of affordable housing. But
Okay.
our plan, our zoning specifically prohibits manufactured housing.
So that's our plan.
So I was reading this, I was thinking, why was this added by the legislature? Was it industry advocacy or
Mm.
something?
right?
That's a
But
good
I
question.
just wanted to highlight this because it does seem like it's something that needs to be discussed.
Mhm.
But, so I'm gonna go right back to the comment I just made. I don't think the way that we're asking the question in the survey about affordable housing gets us anywhere near an action, like actionable items that we could take to implement affordable housing. Like, we're not asking those questions, like what kind of affordable housing would you like to see? We're just asking people if they want to see or if they're in favor of it. So that's just a yes, no,
That's true.
I am or I'm not. But if we have to put it in our comp plan, then we should just, I don't think. I think that presupposes that as a town, you don't care what people think about it. It has to be in your comp plan. So maybe a better question would be, what kind of affordable housing would you be in favor of? Or not kind. Something that gets to the implementation of it versus just a yes, no.
Well, and I think I mean, we've had conversations about how to make housing affordable and we
Yeah.
don't have a whole lot of tools in our tool
Right.
belt, but let's try to think of some things and put them on the blackboard or whatever it's called. I mean, I threw some ideas on there about having conversations with the county and what would it take for us as a town to become a housing provider so that we can actually do our own development, because that was the biggest thing that we said. We can't develop it, but
Right.
maybe we can. What would it take for us to be able to do that? So do we have any creative ideas that we can throw out aside from zoning, aside from rentals? I mean, or smaller rentals, maybe we can say,
Partnerships with local organizations like the Scottsville School,
yeah,
that's affordable housing.
yeah.
These
Well,
are
and
great.
we
I wish
talked
we
about that
had
with the PUD.
Yeah, I wish we had the money to hire more people to actually concentrate on that. I can't imagine that our staff would be able to coordinate something like that.
But
you
who
know?
coordinated
to
with the
build
Piedmont
housing.
Housing Alliance? Somebody did that.
Yeah.
To get the Scottsville apartments.
Well, and maybe we could identify, we don't want, 200 unit apartments, but maybe we want small clusters of, 10 unit apartments. And maybe we want to put in the comp plan that we support the development of 1 10-unit complex in the next 10 years or something like that.
In like a village residential zone or?
There you go. I mean, we have tons of village residential. We can say within village residential, we want to identify one area that could be perfect for that size development.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that, we have
Right.
cluster development, but that's not.
Or what
Again,
about
that still
that
may not
huge
be
space,
affordable.
like the twin brick outlet? Like that could be, you could turn that into like 4 or 5 apartments right there.
Mhm.
And it's already apartments upstairs, existing
Yeah.
apartments.
And so these are the creative ideas that we need to think through or not even think them through at this point, but just get them out on paper, get them on that blackboard. If you I wanted you to give us we don't have a lot of time, but I wanted you to give us a little orientation into the resources in our shared folder.
We can do that, yes.
Okay.
We can share screen, potentially here, right? So just to mention, there are a lot of regional housing reports or documents, particularly through the Tom Jefferson Planning District Commission. And they mentioned during their meeting that I attended about 10 days ago, they might be willing to go on a road show to talk about housing. So I could talk with them and see if they could come here and give us some specific recommendations out of their toolkit.
Which agency, I'm sorry?
Sorry?
Which
Jefferson.
agency?
Tom Jefferson Regional Planning Commission. Yeah. So that's okay, I can talk to them. Yeah. Okay.
So does it make sense to reword that comp plan question in the survey, or do we just want to know if people are in favor of it or not?
Affordable housing?
Sorry,
And what
yes.
they define as affordable?
That,
It's a complex issue.
Oh.
We could have a whole survey just on housing.
Yeah.
yeah,
What I suggest, there's a lot of moving parts on the website and so on and so forth. I suggest we might not be waiting for our survey just yet. We also want to discuss the questions potentially with the town council, make sure we don't ask a bunch of questions that they're not aware of. Not feel. So we could keep updating the survey and then we revisit it at the next meeting. Yeah.
So this is my concern, because
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
off target already, and I think this is the third time we've talked about the survey. I think we just need to decide when good enough is good enough.
Right.
And I think we have town council support on the survey, because you appeared before them last month. Didn't
Oh,
you
I
guys?
didn't speak before. that.
Okay,
Mr.
well, didn't you
Christopher-
guys talk about the survey?
Tom, you did.
Oh, Ms. Morrison actually gave the update, because she attended the previous meeting.
Could we not follow up on this and have it enacted by the town council in our meeting?
Work session next week.
Well, I mean, the works, it's. It's not I don't know that it needs to be a vote, right? It just is more a recommendation that so if we agree, I mean, if the planning commission says we recommend that the survey move forward, town council. I mean, we don't vote until the public session, but I don't know that it needs to be a
Not
vote.
necessarily a vote, but
Yeah.
just more pre-consulting them, making sure they feel involved and we don't want to hear any major complaints or dissent that it's, hey, we weren't consulted.
But I
Yeah,
think we just went through pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
What we,
yeah,
right?
I think we need to.
Commissioners would like to focus on
Culture.
time, then I suggest we leave the housing question as we discussed earlier, just
Okay.
that small amendment. And then we can move forward. I will put it all together in one Word document. I'll send it around by email, especially to Mr. Grisco and maybe Mr. Grisco, you can explain it to the town council at the next opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Then I would, just to follow up on what our chair just said, like, let's make it happen, so to speak.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's-
do we want to do the survey before we do the outreach meetings at like the farmer's market? And I mean, are the survey results going to shape what we talk about at those
Yes.
events, or no? Could we do them?
The survey results gradually come in. I'll be able to export the survey results from Survey Monkey into Excel format. And I can create, email it around. So we could see things come in, but it's not like we're gonna be looking at it live. But what we can do with that QR code or link, we can send it to Nancy Gill and others, get them to start promoting it. And then at the same time, they can promote upcoming events that we might want to engage at. So
Right, I guess my question was, are we waiting until we have all of the survey results before we start doing the community outreach sessions?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
The community outreach will be in furtherance of the survey, trying to get survey responses.
Okay,
But
is that, okay,
I would think of them as elements we synthesize into something for the comp plan.
okay,
So you will have other opportunities to talk, for example, about the agenda item
okay,
for the house.
okay.
Okay,
Alright, great.
quickly moving, we talked about manufactured housing, so this is talking about broadband infrastructure is a requirement. This is only mentioned once in the comp plan, and there's, you know, there was a study done by Albemarle County earlier last year that basically, talks about broadband, and it also highlights that Southern Albemarle County has a lot of gaps.
How can we do anything about that?
I know, wouldn't that be like an, hey, Albemarle, get us some service?
Yeah, that's true. But
So-
also working with these companies, I don't think it's very easy to get those plans.
So I was actually in a UVA class. and
Yeah,
All the class did was basically work on this report for Albemarle County on broadband.
oh, really?
I was working on a different project for my PhD, but all the master students were doing the broadband report. And Albemarle County said they have plenty of resources to prove that it's done on the target. So this report is all about target.
Oh, good,
Right.
okay.
So they're.
Maybe you guys could mention that in your meeting with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, COVID showed us that in real terms as far as needing that and the gaps we had. But what's come after that, I don't know how we affect that, but getting more reports on where we need it, then what? Do the companies respond to that?
Albemarle County has its own funding to basically provide subsidies, but also to fund infrastructure improvements. But it's all about targeting. You can't do it all over the whole Southern California.
Yeah.
County, target SMOD or other places. Yeah, again, I was not involved in that, but I do have a copy of the report, but we could engage with the county manager, I know him, Jason, to find out more information on this specific.
Yeah, I mean, like, what action items can we do? Maybe report on our constituents, or maybe there's more. Like, we would like to see a broadband infrastructure in the area in 10 years.
So staff will reach out to Jason, okay,
Gotcha.
County. The next item is about resilience, that's a requirement, but the word resilience is not in 2018 comp plan. Resilience is a really big term now, planning. So I think we might want to focus on resilience in some aspects.
I would love it if we focused on resilience in this town.
So continuing on strategic planning process, you've already mentioned the process of strategic planning is ongoing. So as I kind of talked about earlier, usually it's strategic plan, then update of the comprehensive plan, and then updated zoning and ordinances. Of course, if there's something urgent, maybe a zoning ordinance could be updated momentarily, but usually it's this flow. So the question is, what process should we follow for the comprehensive plan? Because we've got strategic priorities being written, and I've taken a look at the draft of Ms. Morris and comprehensive plans goal of that. And they're talking about some of the similar things, but they're not really aligned. You know what I mean? They have to be kind of different baskets of information, how things are divided. So the problem is, if we focus a lot of attention in the next couple of weeks or months before the strategic planning process is done, we could have a lot of abortive work.
You'll be there next week, right?
I can be on Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, it seems important that you would be, or have an opportunity to talk to Ms. Morris, and we definitely want to get in sync.
Yeah, and it's really about aligning the terminology. I mean, for instance, a comp plan, you could have 3 priorities like we talked about earlier, or you could have, I think hers right now is 7 or 8. But some of those are physical things and some of them are more administrative, of course. So that's why we need to kind of understand how physical things align with our strategic things. So I will listen in next week. And I'll participate however you like. Okay, so sequence of work. So ideally, this would be the recommended sequence of work. The strategic plan is approved. The planning commission considers the comp plan goals and strategies. Then we have this joint session with town council. The planning commission presents these focus areas. Everyone seems to be on the same page, maybe not agreements, but they understand, everyone understands that these are issues that need to be tackled. And then we proceed with the engagement. I've gotten feedback today that we will hopefully proceed with the survey as soon as possible, once we just let town council know. So I will reorganize this diagram in the future. So we'll focus on speed and doing as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Okay, so the next question is, when can we have the joint planning commission and town council work session?
Do we need a work session, or do we just need you to appear before them and tell them about the survey, for example?
Well, yes, next week could be talking about the survey. Mr. Grisco and myself, however, I can support. But in the future, we probably will need a work session to talk to some of these issues, kind of like that joint strategic planning discussion.
I think once we have the feedback, right?
We could wait for the feedback from the survey, for instance. But I think we also need to sit down and talk about these goals and strategies that are going to go in the comp plan. We don't have an idea yet. What are we going to focus on, right? Are we going to focus on housing? We're going to focus on connection to the river, so on and so forth. What are our priorities? So I would not feel comfortable with us sitting in a work session until we kind of know where we're heading.
So would you
But-
like,
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, but aren't we doing all of the, like, gathering the survey results and meeting with the town to shape what the priorities are?
Normally, we would wait for all the feedback and engagement to come in. And then we would sit down and do that, but I sense that it wants to happen faster than that.
Well, I don't wanna, I think, I'm just speaking for myself, but I wouldn't wanna sit down with the town and craft out a bunch of, or come up with priorities. If they're gonna be, I can't imagine that they would be way off base, but what if, the results of our surveys. Dictate something else, and then would we have to have another joint session to say, hey, I know we said this was gonna be our number one priority, but based on all of our survey results, we think it should actually be this now. Like, why wouldn't we just wait until we get the survey results and engage with the community?
Yes, definitely. So those survey results could happen in parallel with this. So this could last about a month and a half. Because ideally the planning commission consideration of the goals and strategies happens in parallel with the survey results coming in. So maybe the commission sits down and says, okay, these are our 5 priorities. We get the survey in. Okay, those 5 things are confirmed, but we need to add a 6th. So then we know, okay, we're gonna focus on 6 items. Then we go to the joint session with the town council and say, hey, these are the 6 items. What are your thoughts? This is why we think these 6 items are important.
Okay, so the joint session isn't happening until we have those survey results. Okay, that's what,
Okay,
So,
yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't very clear, but ideally the survey results and this will kind of happen.
Okay, that makes more sense to me than having a joint session with them to talk about our goals and strategies before we get feedback. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
and then after the joint session with town council, then we'll be able to have better engagement questions for the little focus groups that we have. Okay, gotcha.
Well,
But wouldn't we be doing that
some
engagement?
of that engagement could be here, and then larger engagement, let's say just workshop. Definitely, we need to have everyone on the same page. for this.
Yes,
So maybe this deep diagram should be, this is workshop engagement, this is like the whole big event.
Like
right.
the culmination of
It
everything.
culminates it and double checks everything and says, hey, if you have anything left to say it now.
Okay,
And then this step right here is survey, small scale reach outs, brewery, library, things like that. This is kind of putting your ear to the ground and kind of listening to what's happening. And that's informing the 5 or 6 priority items.
okay, so when are we doing all of? We need to figure out when the survey is going out, and then we need to start lining up the community engagement sessions and figuring out when we're doing all of that. Before we can figure out when we're jointly meeting with town council.
Yes, so survey, next Monday, we'll talk to town council.
So when are they expecting to have the strategic plan approved?
Do you guys work
We're gonna-
with her on that? Did you and Matthew work with,
I wasn't able to make it unfortunately because of the bus, but
oh, okay. What's her name? Eileen.
Eileen,
Did you work with her?
no, I haven't heard from her.
Well, I know she emailed you
she-
guys,
yeah,
but you had
she-
a meeting set up? There was a meeting set up?
yeah, there was something going on over at the library, but
Mm.
unfortunately I was gonna be within an hour late. So
Okay.
she told me not to.
Okay,
come.
so,
You take advantage of the work session. Also get a timeline again on that. I think status, how it's been about a month
okay,
since last time we discussed this.
yeah, cause I thought she said like by the end of June, so it should be imminent, I guess.
We'll follow up during the work session.
Yeah.
To get a little bit better perspective.
Okay.
So looking at the calendar. So Mr. Gritzko and I talked to the town council on the 10th. Later that week, I can get the survey up and running. I might even have the drafts ready for the town council.
Mhm.
Just so they can walk through it. And I'll of course send a draft link around to the planning commissioners also, we could get feedback very quickly. So maybe we target to make the survey live, by the 17th of July, Monday the 17th.
Okay, great. And the Nancy Gill's podcast comes out on the 7th, on the Monday, so if you have it ready that Sunday, she could probably include it.
Okay. Then, we could have another, discussion, maybe two counselors and myself on the 24th, if you'd like. I think that's always fruitful. We can talk about more nuts and bolts. I think we made progress that into this presentation on the survey section. So I'd be willing to do that on the 24th, if anyone's up for that. I'll send out an email and we can crowdsource who's excited about that.
And this, sorry, that meeting is with town council or,
No,
sorry,
this would just be two commissioners and myself. That's the maximum we can have without having a formal meeting.
oh, but with town council?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
what
I
was the
thought that's
meeting
what you
about?
said.
I thought that was what you said
Oh,
too.
no, so basically, Mr. Grisco and I are gonna meet with town council on the 10th.
Yep,
That's the work session. Then we're gonna have the survey live by the 17th of this month.
Yep.
Then the next open Monday is on the 24th. And ideally, that could be a discussion amongst myself and two of you,
Gotcha.
like what we did last month.
oh, okay, gotcha, yeah,
So this will be an informal meeting, discussion without the public.
okay.
I will send out an email and whoever responds, I'd be glad to meet with you.
Okay,
Okay, so then our next meeting is on the 7th of August.
so I think, will we start planning the community outreach before the next meeting? Like, will we start doing that? You
I
know,
could help with tabling, with getting excitement about that. We already have some people that are participating. And then maybe that 24th is an opportunity to meet up and assure that we have the right dates and then we have all the tabling together. Because
okay,
Sounds good.
We come to both
I'm still in a.
staff and council work together.
okay, then I will be at the 24th meeting.
Sorry, commissioners and staff who work together to make sure we have that grounding to start doing.
Right,
Great.
Community outreach.
okay, so count me in for that one.
Okay, so we'll have the tabling sheet, we'll have the schedule, and if we don't have names filled in, we'll have the link and we can probably have that discussion.
Okay, so can we start sending around a schedule before that event and then we
Yes.
can have, or that meeting, and then we can have an idea of who's gonna at least tackle the first couple? Okay, great,
And then also we'll have the before that, I'll send around the comp plan engagement brochure, so that's on our list. So this will be a 2-pager, maybe front and back about Scottsville's comp plan, why we're doing it, and what information we hope to gather. Yeah. And maybe a very simple diagram about our engagement process. Yeah.
Number 3.
Number 3.
I'm teasing you. There was no
1, 2,
number.
4.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's done already. I'm glad.
Yes.
It's done already.
Okay, so I think we're clear, and Javier, thanks for your help for the 24th. We'll get this all ramped up for that. Okay.
Will we have the comp plan engagement brochure for the tabling sessions too?
Definitely, that's the whole.
That's
purpose.
part of it.
So then I'll send around the draft by email.
Okay. Great.
Everyone, I'll make it a live Word document, so if anyone has any amendments or additions or such, you can put it right in there live, we can all see it.
Great.
Okay, so the upcoming reading list, I would suggest we focus on transportation and walkability studies, because this one from those that are going to be that discussion.
Okay.
There's a lot of reports, especially on biking and sorts of things.
So where do we find the transportation and walkability studies.
So I will send out an email tomorrow.
Okay,
That lists those reports, the ones I suggest you take a look at,
okay,
and we'll have the links.
thanks.
Okay, so moving on, Scottsville zoning updates is the next agenda item for this meeting. The convention zoning updates typically done following the updates in comp plan. But we wanted to service this because I was looking through some of the old emails looking for documents.
Yeah.
And this came up, an email from 2021 Matt, basically recording, some of these things that the commissioners might want to consider for the future.
Yeah, and some of this was done. So like the map amendments was done. Well, what is the doctor's office on Page Street? That was not done. I don't
Oh,
remember that
that's
one.
interesting.
Hmm.
I know where that is. It's the old doctor's office
Yeah,
that's vacant and has been vacant.
Okay, so that was not done. I
Weird.
don't know what that is, but
Is that, I
and
thought that was.
Irish Road plat.
Residence.
Yeah,
what?
too.
Hmm?
They just kept the sign,
Right. Yeah,
and like occasionally there's like
Right,
a
okay.
tractor trailer truck.
yeah.
So,
Javier and I were looking through the zoning map today, and the latest was in 2021.
Hmm.
So we'll compare back to that.
Yeah. That's when we talked about Confederate Street and Bruce Park, and I feel like there was one other map amendment. If you remember.
it was I mean, as far as Confederate Street is concerned, it was a couple of lots, it wasn't just one.
Wow, was it a couple of lots?
Yeah, because there's one that is adjoining to the park and all that kind of stuff, so
Okay.
back in that area.
Yeah, look at the map because we did make some decisions from that. And not everything was easy.
But those aren't easy. They're not easy.
Oh, that was the, what,
Yeah,
wasn't
that
that
was
the,
the Confederate Street ended up being a big controversy, but less so on.
the purple next to the, not,
Oh, no, that wasn't
Deanna's?
included.
wasn't that part of the zoning updates or just
Well, that
like
was more
getting
recent.
things? Right, but like, I thought that was part of this larger initiative to just make everything correspond with the map.
So I guess staff will go back through the minutes and compare with the map we have from 2021 and see that the updates need to be made, and those will go into the new zoning map. And that map will go into the comp plan. Then after the comp plan, then we would make the zoning text amendments subsequent. We'll focus on this a little bit. Sorry, these a little bit later. Following the comp plan and the other updates.
Mhm. We did village residential. Look at my email. I think my email is, well, I didn't discuss all the map amendments in detail, but I did discuss some of the zoning.
So we'll compare, focusing on the map first, those things in the minutes. Okay. VDOT round table, okay, so basically everyone's on board now for 31st of July and then sorry, it's I messed this up. 24th of July, 3 to 5 p.m. Okay. We did invite Stevie Lopes from Scan, haven't heard back from her yet. Yeah. Okay, so we'll work on confirming that with VDOT. In terms of technical assistance, these are the long-term comprehensive plan questions. We broke the agenda items as we go along agenda into 3 different time sequences. First is the long-term related comprehensive plan. The most important thing that we hopefully will do is request technical assistance from VDOT in helping to prepare the transportation aspect of the comp plan. So I just wanted to highlight in the presentation, this is what the comp plan requirements say about transportation, and it says specifically that we can get assistance from VDOT. And hopefully it's free. It doesn't say the top. Yeah. They also will help us prepare cost estimates. Let's say we want to provide more sidewalks. even though VDOT might not pay directly for sidewalks, without a grant, for instance, they can at least help us produce the cost estimate. And that can help us get grants down the road. Okay, it does say we have to consult with VDOT for the comp plan anyway, and it takes a certain amount of time, so it's great that we have them on board, so they'll hopefully give us approval of that.
I have a question about that VDOT meeting. Who is running the meeting and will there be an agenda sent out prior?
So their latest communication was they were asking us what we want to talk about, and they gave us a selection of dates.
Mm-hmm.
So we can reply to them tomorrow on, here's our preferred date, they already got that locked in the calendar.
Topics is who they'll bring to the table. That's why they want the topic, so.
So we'll give them this.
I can talk with them, and see. I mean, they said something about having it at their residence.
The residency office is near the Pentops entrance to the interstate, right? Yeah.
But it's many, as we have on our committee, they may be willing, it'll depend how many people they've got to bring to the table.
So we'll talk with them
We'll
tomorrow.
talk with them and see.
If I'm gonna mention a very specific thing, should I tell you one off later what that is? Not to waste the time in the meeting.
Well, we have very specific immediate things. These are dealing with intersection and crosswalks. Just with crowdsourced from commissioners and town council members. So if maybe it's already mentioned on page 71. But you can definitely mention and we can add it to the agenda. And we might not cover all these things in the first meeting. It might just be that we cover them in a subsequent meeting. This is an inventory of concerns.
Yeah, it's not on there, but I'll mention it too.
Okay. Okay, so this, I believe, is the last slide. Thank you so much for your attention today. It's almost 4th of July. Thanks very much for your guidance on the schedule. So we'll work on your advice and guidance.
Thank you for doing
Thank
all of this. This
you.
is incredible. Hats off to you. It's
Thank you, but
so helpful.
I have to highlight, we'll have to still rush to get done by the end of this year. We've got a lot of things going on.
Oh, yeah.
So if a small group will help facilitate that to make it go faster, then by all means, let's do that. And we have a lot of willing participants. We could find 2 of us to do that small group with you.
Great, okay. So I think we'll communicate by email meanwhile on the survey and this brochure, same process will be gain ground at it.
And I think it's fair to say that emails are gonna start flying really fast, and they've picked up a lot in the last in the last month or 2. So just know that there is stuff going on that we could be involved in.
How do you all manage your email, seeing as we get 2 emails
Oh,
for
it's such
every
a pain in
email
the neck.
that's sent?
I just ignore the one that says
Or-
planning commission. I just-
Right.
I just don't want to miss anything. I don't know whether I am getting rid of all planning commission ones and picking up the ones that are just sent to my email. I just would love some guidance on that.
Could you share a screenshot of your email? And send it to me,
Sure.
and then,
And I can say this is a duplicate of this.
yeah,
Oh, you're getting duplicate.
Well, they're sending the emails to my PC4 and to the planning commission, or the planning commission is breaking off and sending it to my box. And it's coming to my box, whatever the case, one says it's from planning commission, the other is from the sender. And so I just wanted to know what you all did, so that you don't miss something that's singly, sent. I don't know the reason for that, so I'd love some guidance. Do you understand what I'm saying there, Javier?
that's why I suggested maybe send a screenshot of the email.
Yes.
And then I can work backwards from that.
But I'm not the only one experiencing this,
Well,
is that right?
If I will make sure that I have 2 that have the same subject line.
Yeah.
And I'll even open them up to look at them, and then when I see that they're identical, I get rid of the one that says planning commission.
I get that, but that's a lot of
Yeah.
extra work if
Right.
we don't
Yeah.
have to have double emails
Mhm.
every time someone
Mhm.
sends an email.
I mean, even when I respond, I then get
Yes,
an email
you get the
sent
email
back
from
saying,
yourself.
"Some- the
Yeah.
planning commission
Because
responded,
it's being,
except me.
Yeah, I
Not
think,
speaking of the distribution list.
I think-
Yes.
Yeah, I think administratively, that's a little excessive.
Send it, because I'll need to share that with Prasad and learn what's happening.
I'm gonna send it right away.
Maybe we just have. The commission sends it, when we get planning commission sends to all of them, and it may have their individual emails in there too.
Mm.
Mhm.
I don't know what the case is, it's every.
I
pretty
bet you
much
that
every-
is, like, that's probably the distribution list is everybody's individual
Plus-
email plus the planning commission, which
PC.
is the whole.
Well, thank you for highlighting that, and that's really important.
I'm so
We'll
glad to
iron that out.
contribute to the meeting, yes.
There was a request for an overview of our shared folder for the content. So here are basically 6 different folders right now. The first one is the most important, I think, draft comp plan materials. So in here we have,
parking lot, that's what I was trying to remember the
Parking lot,
name
yes.
of. That's
Someone mentioned the
really,
next-
really
next
good
name
to go
parking
ahead
lot.
and jump in there and start adding ideas in.
To the,
The parking
Parking
lot.
lot.
okay,
there's a lot of ideas in there, and there's a lot of other comments in there that I think are really good.
ooh,
Then we have the actual comp plan working document, that's the 2018 comp plan with track changes. So I've already started to move things around and change, updated commissioners' names, so on and so forth.
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah. We have our last timeline that was presented, I will update this. And then we have, for instance, our last zoning map, the one I mentioned from 2021, that was the last update that we had.
Okay.
I did find the GIS file today, that Javier handed me over some documents. So we have the GIS file from a while ago, we don't have the 2021 GIS file yet. But we'll.
there's some fun discrepancies in there. Let me tell you.
So basically, then town information, this has all the documents related to the town, or reports written about the town or the region. So for instance, Alamo County. All the old comp plan and a lot of the new comp plan materials are in here. Okay,
That's a lot of documents.
yeah, and this is not everything, this is just. Yeah. Charlottesville, as a reference, as accelerated dwelling units, ADUs, they have a document that's quite useful. Their 2021 comp plan, just as a comparison. And then their websites that they're currently using for their, zoning modifications, so forth. Fluvanna County comp plan is in there, 2015, their draft for their 2023 comp plan. Future land use, so on and so forth, and they have their own website, comp plan process. That's not very extensive stuff, it's pretty simple. James River, all the reports done on the James River, Middle James, so on and so forth, you might have seen some of the stuff, you might not have. But because the James River is so important to the town, I created a folder for that. We have Parks and Trails, crowd pleaser. So the Van Cleef map, the Van Cleef master plan, so on and so forth. We even pulled up an old poster board of Van Cleef right back there to have handy.
There is a bicycle, wasn't there a bicycle plan, like trails for bicycles? No. Is that a walking trail?
Well,
Something, is that it?
So we have this, I think it's from part of the scan documents. Then Jack also created a few other maps that we also have for, I think it's under infrastructure. So let's see, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, this is a lot of the comprehensive housing studies that have been done for the region. Home sharing, they have their own ADU guide also for accessory dwelling units,
Oh, nice.
bike pedestrian greenway.
That's
plan.
what I'm thinking of.
This is from
That's
two
from
thousand four, but this is important because it's the same issues that are current today.
Okay.
Electric vehicle charging in the region, planning for affordability in terms of housing, so on and so forth. There is a lot of documents here. This is why I'm proposing a reading list, so we don't tackle it all at once,
Mhm.
just periodically on specific topics. Okay. Previous comp plans, these are new additions today, based on Javier's stump drive. We have the Scottsville 2005, 2008, and 2013 comprehensive plan.
Nice.
Those are in there. You can see the progress made, and then, in terms of town specific materials, these are all our, West downtown small area plan, Scottsville visions, which is an architectural study, mixed use, mixed income, that survey that we already looked at, so on and so forth. So these are all these town information, we can call it, other comp plans, I've just put a few others in there. McClellanville, South Carolina, this is a comparable size of town. Richmond is, of course, a very large town. Staunton in the region. These are other examples that have been mentioned, for instance, in the report by Berkeley, their proposal to the town for their fees. They mentioned some of these comp plans as comparable to our town. So that's why they're in there. So then we have meeting info, our previous PowerPoint slides. These planning reference is some information from the American Planning Association, for instance, and then the Virginia statute for comp plans that we talked about today. That's the link. And zoning reference. So all of our zoning materials going in here. I know dark skies was one issue that has been coming up, so I saved some dark sky literature here. This one proposal was for dark sky zoning in downtown. So if you want to refer to that in the future, that's here. Okay, that's an overview. I'll send you a reading list suggestion on focusing on transportation. So to walk it over.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A lot.
Yeah.
I think that includes all the agenda items prepared for the comprehensive plan related to that.
It's really nice to have it all in one place because these are a lot of the documents that we've talked about a lot over the years, and here they are in one place. And this will really help inform our new plan.
This is incredibly valuable work.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Just to also mention, we have some hard copy reports here. The reason I mentioned these. there's- But, a lot of the VDOT things that we're talking about, this is a previous VDOT study from 2002. It has a really nice, layout of, how some pavement improvements can be made to slow traffic, so on and so forth. So these things we might want to consider. We don't have to recreate the wheel when we talk to the VDOT.
Yep, that's what it feels like.
So, for instance, this intersection here at Main Street and Valley, right, there's already a design done 20 years ago. About, it's just creating color pavement, slowing down vehicles with a median, so on and so forth. So we don't have to go back to square one.
One thing Lincoln, I just want to say, going back to what you just said, I found as a town councilor, it might have been 10 years ago, a study that much of what we needed to do and ended up doing in Van Cleef was done years ago. In fact, I've said many times, most of the stuff we try to do, somebody thought of before. It's just a matter of actually doing it, which is a whole different thing. But thank you, that's really helpful.
Great.
Can we have the hard copy?
Yeah, these were just in a bookcase over there, but we have them all here.
That's incredible. I love that, yeah, it takes, 20 years to make something happen.
That's why we need a list of all of the studies that have been done, so we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
Yeah,
I mean, some of them are gonna be outdated at a certain point in time, but that's not, having creative traffic solutions is timeless. Yeah, thank you.
$1 is something in the middle of the street like they do down.
Like in Belmont.
I love that. People are so different.
Or like an electronic dog or kid. It's out in the.
That's terrible.
It's like this target practice.
Oh, that's an accident.
Not to imagine
I know.
lost me at 9:30.
Yeah, no, I
I've
don't
just
blame
been-
you.
Well, now you're back in
Making
the
judgments.
discussion.
All right, do we have any new business? Okay,
No. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Would you like the honor?
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned 9:40. So much for that easy meeting.
I
we were looking
know.
Forward to.
But it was good.
Yes, yeah, it was very important. All right, happy 4th, everyone.
Happy 4th.
Have fun, everyone. I wonder if it's gonna be like packed because.
I know.
Charlottesville's not, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But apparently Boar's Head is, and it's free.
Oh. okay.
So
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping people will do that instead. Bye, Lisa.
Well, you can see them from 9, so come on by.
Hey.